Across the galaxy, the celebration had already begun. The massive fleets of the Galactic Council filled the skies over their numerous worlds, their flags waving proudly in the winds of victory. The great war that had lasted for years was finally over Earth. The last remaining threat had been crushed. It was a moment of triumph for the aliens who had fought so hard to end humanity's existence. The humans, they thought, were a primitive species. Their technology was outdated, their armies weak. The galaxy had underestimated them at first, but now it was clear that Earth posed no more danger. The alien forces, from the powerful insectoid-like Krashari to the Texavi Zinter, had united under the banner of the Galactic Council to destroy the human race. Their fleets were vast, their weapons far superior to anything Earth could muster. Last human outpost had fallen hours earlier. The planet's resistance had been small, their forces scattered. The aliens had swept through Earth's defenses with ease, burning cities and overwhelming human strongholds. The Earth was now silent, its people either destroyed or scattered across the stars. The once proud species was nothing more than a fading memory at the heart of the celebration. On a massive floating platform above the capital of the Zinter homeworld, the Council's leaders gathered. These beings, the supreme commanders of the galaxy's forces, were confident that no one would dare to challenge them again. The Council's leaders smiled and exchanged congratulations, their eyes sparkling with pride. They had made history. "Today marks the end of the human menace," said Zoreth, the leader of the Krashari race. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying. "Across the platform, their world is gone, and with it, any threat they ever posed." There were cheers from the crowd. The alien generals stood in a line, their bodies adorned with medals and symbols of their victories. Their armies had fought hard, but now they could rest easy. The last resistance had fallen, and their galaxy was secure. "We've done what was necessary," said Sorrel, the leader of the Zinter, a sleek and technologically advanced species.
One could have predicted how quickly they would fall.
They were nothing compared to us. "We are the victors now," Zoroth added. "We control the galaxy, and Earth is just another conquered world." The alien leaders raised their glasses, their drinks glowing with the colors of their respective homeworlds. They toasted to their success, to the end of the war, and to their secure place in the galaxy. It was a moment of perfect harmony, or so they thought. However, even as the Council celebrated, a few commanders in the far reaches of the galaxy noticed something strange. A faint signal had been picked up by a distant listening post. It was weak at first, almost imperceptible, and was quickly dismissed by most as nothing more than static or a malfunction. But there were a few commanders who recognized its source. It was human-made. On a distant world, a group of human survivors huddled in a hidden base deep beneath the surface of a barren moon had activated their final weapon. It wasn't much. Just a small device buried in the ruins of an old military outpost. But it was enough. The survivors knew they were lost. They had fought for years, but in the end they couldn't match the strength of the alien forces. But Earth had one last card to play. They had spent years working on a project so secret, so dangerous, that only a few even knew it existed. Now, it was time to use it. The device was simple, but effective. It would send out a signal that would reach the farthest corners of the galaxy, broadcasting a message no one expected. Meanwhile, the celebration continued on the Zinter capital, unaware of the message being sent from a dying world. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of exotic food and drinks, and the air was filled with the sound of laughter. The alien generals began to relax, their eyes heavy with the weight of their victory. A few moments later, the signal began to grow stronger. A few sharp-eyed observers on the fringes of the celebration felt an odd shift in the air. They couldn't explain it, but something seemed off. Some thought it was just the excitement of victory playing tricks on their minds, while others ignored the feeling, confident that nothing could threaten them now. But then, it happened. The air above the celebration platform began to hum, faint at first but growing louder with each passing second. The people on the platform looked up in confusion. The hum turned into a low rumble, and the sky above them seemed to shift. A strange, eerie glow filled the heavens, a brilliant light that seemed to come from nowhere. It wasn't long before the first ships appeared. At first, they were just dots in the sky, too far away to make out clearly. But as the seconds passed, they grew larger, and the shape of the ships became clearer. They were massive, larger than anything the Council had ever seen. The ships were not sleek and modern like the Zinter vessels. They were old, worn, and battered, their surfaces scarred from years of hiding in the shadows. Yet they radiated power like nothing the aliens could comprehend. The first ship to arrive was enormous, a colossal craft that seemed to stretch across the entire sky. It was followed by another, and then another. The ships continued to pour from the glowing rift in the sky, more and more emerging with every passing second. The alien leaders stared in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief. These ships, these old, outdated human vessels, were not just appearing. From nowhere, they were arriving in force. They were not alone. The space around them rippled and twisted as if the very fabric of reality itself was warping under the pressure. "What is this?" Zorath gasped, his voice shaking. "How are they here? They were supposed to be gone." But the humans weren't gone. They had never been gone. They'd been waiting for this moment, hidden away, preparing for the day they would turn the tide. The ships were not the only thing that had emerged. A powerful energy filled the Aran energy that made the entire sky tremble. Alien ships, once so proud and strong, began to falter. Systems failed, engines sputtered and died. Some ships began to spin out of control, unable to keep their course as the strange energy disrupted their technology. "What is happening?" Sorrel said, his voice cracking with panic. The answer came in the form of a low, deep sound that reverberated through the galaxy. It was as if the heavens themselves were speaking, a voice that shook the very stars. The humans had not been defeated. In fact, they had only just begun. The celebration, the victory, the belief that the war was over, all of it, vanished in an instant. The heavens had opened up, and Earth was not defeated. Earth had returned with a vengeance. As the strange ships continued to pour from the rift in the sky, the galaxy's leaders struggled to make sense of what was happening. The once celebratory atmosphere of the Council's victory celebrations had quickly shifted to one of confusion and fear. The enormous human ships, some of them more than a mile long, filled the skies above the Zintar capital. Their sudden appearance was impossible to ignore. Zora, the leader of the Krashari, stood frozen, staring up at the sky. His normally imposing figure seemed smaller now, as though the weight of this unexpected turn of events was pressing down on him.
Nice.
"This cannot be happening," he muttered, almost to himself. Around him, the alien leaders scrambled to assess the situation. Sorrel, the sharp-minded leader of the Zinter, was already ordering his officers to scan the incoming ships, trying to identify any weaknesses or strategies for defense. "Out! Could we not have seen this coming?" he asked, his voice tight with disbelief. In the center of the platform, a massive screen flickered to life, displaying live footage of the human fleet descending. The holographic map zoomed in on the ships, showing their precise location as they advanced. To the aliens' growing horror, they could see that the human fleet was not only vast, but was quickly taking positions above their own forces, cutting off escape routes and strategic points. "We need to engage them," one of the alien generals shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the growing hum of the human ship's engines. The sky was filled with a low, ominous sound, almost like the Earth itself was groaning under the pressure of something powerful and ancient. The ships in the human fleet were unlike any the aliens had ever encountered. The alien technology had been far superior to Earth's, or so they had believed. But now, they were looking at the strange, weathered ships that were somehow far more powerful than they could have imagined. The human ships were ancient, their hulls covered in scars and damage from years of hiding. Yet they radiated an energy that made the galaxy's finest ships appear fragile in comparison. On the ground below, citizens of the Zinter homeworld watched in stunned silence. The celebrations had turned into chaos. People had seen their leader's victory, their great triumph over Earth, but now they were witnessing something completely different. Their planet, once at the center of the galaxy, was now in the grip of an unknown force. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. On other worlds, the victory parties that had been planned for this day suddenly stopped. News reports spread like wildfire. A new mysterious fleet had emerged from the heavens, and it was led by humans. The signal had come from Earth, but it was more than just a message. It was a warning. The humans had known all along that they could not match the aliens in numbers or technology. But they had one thing the aliens could not have predicted: the ability to hide, to adapt, and to unleash something far greater than anyone had imagined. Back in the control room, Sorrel and Zoroth watched the screen, both stunned into silence. The signal that had been detected earlier, faint and seemingly unimportant, was now making perfect sense. It wasn't just a signal, it was a beacon. A signal that had activated something within the ships, a hidden power waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. "What have we done?" Zoroth whispered, his face pale. Had underestimated the humans in every way, and now his arrogance was coming back to haunt him. Suddenly, a loud rumbling noise shook the platform. The air vibrated with energy, and a shockwave passed through the entire city. The ground trembled as if something large had crashed into it, but no physical object was visible. The ships in the sky had begun to move, their engines firing with bright beams of energy. "They're attacking," someone screamed. But the human ships didn't need to fire weapons. The very presence of their fleet was enough to disrupt the alien forces. The energy they emitted was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Alien ships, once sleek and formidable, now struggled to keep control. Some simply dropped out of the sky, unable to withstand the strange force emanating from the humans. "We have to leave," one of the alien generals shouted, his voice filled with panic. "If we don't retreat now, we'll be destroyed." But it was too late. The humans weren't here just to destroy, they had come to change the game. Their technology, once thought obsolete, now turned out to be far ahead of anything the galaxy had created. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a force that could bend space, time, and reality itself. The alien leaders were beginning to realize the truth: Earth hadn't been defeated. It had only been biding its time, waiting for the right moment to strike. The final blow had come in the form of a signal that had unlocked the hidden power of humanity's most dangerous weapon. And now, the galaxy was paying the price for its hubris. As the alien fleets scrambled to regroup, the human ships continued their relentless descent. With each passing moment, the sky above the Zinter capital grew darker, the strange energy from the human fleet blocking out the sun. It wasn't just an attack, it was an awakening aboard one of the human ships. The leader of the resistance watched the events unfold. She stood at the front of the control room, her eyes fixed on the display. Her hands gripped the console, her face set with determination. She had known this day would come, had always believed it would. But seeing it happen was something else entirely. "We can't stop now," she said, her voice low but filled with power. "This is just the beginning." The crew around her nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had all fought for this moment, all sacrificed for this final stand. The humans had been pushed to the edge, but now they were pushing back. And the galaxy was about to learn a harsh truth. Back on the surface of the Zinter homeworld, panic had set in. People ran through the streets, unsure of what to do or where to go. The once proud cities of the Zinter began to crumble under the pressure of the human power. Buildings shook, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to crack and tremble. The celebration had ended. But the battle was just beginning. The human fleet continued its advance, slowly and methodically, overwhelming the alien defenses at every turn. They didn't need to fight. The very presence of their ships and the energy they emitted was enough to cripple their enemies. It was as if the heavens themselves had opened up to reveal the true power of Earth. And now there was no going back. In the heart of the Zinter capital, the alien leaders could only watch as their empire began to collapse. What had started as a day of victory had turned into a nightmare. And the worst part was that they knew they had underestimated humanity in the most disastrous way. Possible Earth had not been defeated. It had only been waiting for the right moment to prove that it was far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. As the strange energy from the human ships continued to pulse through the air, The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The once confident alien forces were now in a state of confusion and panic. The human fleet, once thought defeated and insignificant, had turned out to be a force of unimaginable power. It was as if the heavens themselves had opened up to reveal the true strength of Earth, the sky above the Zinter capital. Once a symbol of the galaxy's superiority, had now become a place of terror. Alien ships, once advanced and sleek, now appeared, fragile and outdated next to the human fleet. The air crackled with energy as the human ships moved closer, their enormous forms casting shadows over the city. Each ship seemed to hum with a strange power, and their presence alone was enough to send shockwaves through the alien forces. Zoroth, the leader of the Krashari, muttered in disbelief. His voice trembled as he watched the human ships approach. He had been so sure that Earth was defeated, that their technology was far inferior to the might of the Galactic Council. But now, he could see that he had been wrong. The humans had kept their true power hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. Retreat. We need to retreat. Sorrel, the leader of the Zinter, shouted, his voice filled with urgency. The once unified forces of the Galactic Council were now breaking apart. The alien ships, disoriented and powerless against the strange energy of the human fleet, began to scatter. Some tried to flee, but others were stuck, unable to escape the gravitational pull of the human ships. It wasn't just the technology that was different, it was the humans themselves. The way they fought, the way they planned, the way they adapted, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. While the Council had celebrated the fall of Earth, the humans had been quietly working in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike back. The human fleet didn't need to fire weapons. The mere presence of their ships was enough to destabilize the alien forces. Their technology was based on principles the galaxy had never understood in ancient, almost forgotten science that allowed them to manipulate the very fabric of space and time. On one of the human ships, Commander Elise Davis stood at the helm, watching the chaos unfold below. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, filled with determination. She had been part of Earth's last stand, and now she was watching the plan unfold exactly as they had hoped. Her ship, the Eclipse, was the lead vessel of the fleet, a towering giant in the sky that seemed to bend reality itself. The human ships followed, each one powerful in its own right, but none as mighty as the Eclipse. "We've done it," Elise said quietly to her second-in-command, Lieutenant James Carter. "This is the beginning of a new era for Earth." Carter nodded, his face reflecting the same mix of relief and disbelief. "I never thought we'd get to this point," he said. "The galaxy thought we were finished. They underestimated us." Elise's gaze remained fixed on the screen in front of her. The alien fleets were now in disarray, their once imposing formations shattered. Ships were colliding, and many had already been disabled by the strange energy field surrounding the human fleet. The chaos was spreading quickly, and the alien leaders seemed powerless to stop it. "We still need to be careful," Elise said, her voice steady but firm. "We've made a powerful move, but we can't let them regroup. We need to keep the pressure on." As the human ships moved closer to the alien capital, the alien leaders on the ground were in full panic mode. They had never expected the humans to be capable of something like this. The idea that Earth could turn the tide of the war with a fleet of ancient ships seemed impossible, yet here they were, watching in horror as the very forces they had worked so hard to defeat now seemed unstoppable. "We've underestimated them," Zoroth admitted, his voice filled with frustration. He turned to Sorrel, who was now barking orders to his officers, trying to maintain some semblance of control. "We should have never believed they were weak." Sorrel's face was grim as he looked out over the city, watching as the human ships descended. "It's not over yet," he said, though his words were hollow. The alien forces were still numerous, and there were many more fleets scattered across the galaxy. But even as he spoke, a part of him knew that the balance of power had shifted. The galaxy was no longer in control. Earth had returned, and it was more dangerous than they had ever imagined. "Order the fleet to engage," Sorrel commanded, though his voice lacked the confidence it once had. The alien ships, now disorganized and desperate, began to launch their counterattack, but it was clear that they were outmatched. The human ships had already proven their superiority, and now they were unleashing their full might. Elise watched as the alien ships tried to retaliate. Their weapons fired wildly, but they were ineffective against the strange energy field protecting the human fleet. One by one, the alien ships were either disabled or destroyed, their weapons useless against the humans' advanced technology. Their shields are impenetrable, Carter said, his eyes wide in amazement. How are they doing this? Lisa's gaze never wavered from the battlefield below. It's not just technology, she said. It's something deeper. The humans have been preparing for this moment for years, hiding their true power until the galaxy thought it was too late. On the surface of the Zinter capital, panic was spreading like wildfire. The once proud city, filled with alien life and bustling with activity, was now in ruins. The human fleet had decimated the alien defenses, and the once unified forces of the Galactic Council were now falling apart. The Zinter, once the most powerful species in the galaxy, were on the brink of collapse. "We need to get the civilians to safety," one of the alien commanders said, his voice frantic. "Can't let them be caught in the crossfire." But it was too late. The human fleet had already surrounded the planet, cutting off any hope of escape. The sky above the city was filled with the rumble of engines and the crackle of energy. The humans were not here just to fight. They were here to reshape the galaxy. As the alien leaders struggled to maintain control, Elise issued her next order. "Prepare for ground assault," she said. "We've already taken their fleets. Now we take their capital." The eclipse began to descend, its enormous form casting a shadow over the alien city. The other human ships followed, their massive forms blocking out the stars. They were here to conquer, to reclaim what was once theirs. Earth had been defeated. Once, but now it was stronger than ever. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake by underestimating humanity. And now they were going to pay the price. In the control room of the eclipse, Elise's voice rang out, steady and clear. "This is our moment," she said. "The galaxy will remember this day, and they will never forget the power of Earth." As the fleet descended toward the planet's surface, the alien capital's last defenses crumbled. The humans had come to claim their victory, and nothing could stop them now. The day the human fleet appeared from the heavens marked a turning point in the galaxy's history. The once victorious aliens, who had celebrated Earth's defeat, now found themselves in a fight for survival. Alien forces, scattered and disorganized, were struggling to maintain their positions. Their once advanced ships, overwhelmed by the human fleet's strange power, were unable to withstand the assault. Earth had returned not as a defeated world, but as a force to be reckoned with. Elise Davis, commander of the human fleet, stood on the bridge of the eclipse, her eyes fixed on the screens before her. She had spent years planning for this moment, knowing that the galaxy would never accept Earth as a true equal. The alien forces had thought the war was over, but they had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. "This is just the beginning," Elise said, her voice steady but filled with determination. Her crew, silent and focused, knew that the fight was far from over. The humans had unleashed their true power, but the galaxy's remaining forces still posed a threat. "We've taken the first step, but we need to keep pushing forward." "We've already taken their fleets, Commander," Lieutenant Carter replied, his voice filled with admiration. "What's left to fight?" Elise turned to him, her face grim. "We need to secure their capital. Without their leadership, their forces will crumble. The aliens may be weak right now, but they will fight to the end. We need to finish this quickly." Outside, the human fleet hovered above the Zinter capital, a sea of massive ships glowing with energy. The once great city now lay in ruins, its once proud towers reduced to rubble. The alien leaders, desperate to regroup, had retreated to their underground bunkers, but it was clear that the battle was nearly over. Their arrogance had led them to believe that they could defeat Earth. But now it was humanity's turn to rewrite the rules of the galaxy. In the heart of the Zinter capital, the alien leaders huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Zorath, the leader of the Krashari, stood at the front, his towering figure shaking. "What are we supposed to do now?" he asked, his voice filled with panic. "The human fleet is unstoppable. We've lost everything." Sorel, the leader of the Zinter, tried to steady himself. He had always been a calm and calculating leader, but now he seemed out of his depth. "We fight back," he said, his voice trembling. "We may be outnumbered, but we still have forces in other parts of the galaxy. We can regroup and strike back." Zorath shook his head. "It's over. They've already crippled our fleets. There's nothing left for us to fight with. We've been outplayed." Sorel clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had never imagined that the humans would have such a hidden power. Earth had been the laughingstock of the galaxy for so long, and now it was clear that the galaxy had underestimated them in the worst way possible. The humans weren't just a weak species. They were a species capable of changing the entire balance of power in the galaxy. "We can't just give up," Sorel said, his voice growing stronger. "We'll fight until the last ship falls. The humans may have their surprise, but we still have something they don't. Unity. Together, we can crush them." "Unity," Zorath scoffed. "How can we be united when their ships are tearing us apart? Unity won't save us now." The alien leaders, once so sure of their victory, now found themselves fighting for survival. The tables had turned, and the humans were on the offensive. But Elise knew that it wasn't just about technology, it was about strategy. The humans had taken advantage of the galaxy's overconfidence, hiding their true strength until the right moment. And now, they were reaping the rewards. On the surface of the Zinter homeworld, the last remnants of the alien military were making their final stand. Alien ships continued to rise from their launch bays, but they were outmatched. The human fleet, now fully engaged in battle, tore through the alien defenses. The energy blasts from the Eclipse and the other ships sent shockwaves through the air, causing the ground to shake beneath the aliens' feet. The sky, once filled with alien ships, was now a chaotic mess of burning wreckage. The human ships moved with precision, their weapons firing in unison. The alien forces, disorganized and panicked, were no match for the onslaught. As the last of the alien defenses fell, the humans pushed deeper into the city. Elise's voice came over the intercom, clear and calm despite the chaos around her. "Prepare for ground assault," she said. "We're going to finish this today." The human forces, led by ground troops who had been waiting for this moment, began their descent to the surface. The humans were not only fighting in space, they were now fighting on the ground, ready to take the capital and end the alien reign once and for all. As the human soldiers made their way down, they encountered resistance from the alien forces still hiding in the city. The Zinter soldiers, though outnumbered, fought with everything they had. But their weapons were no match for the human technology. The humans had developed new weapons blasters, shields, and armor that the aliens had never seen before. Each step they took brought them closer to the heart of the capital, where the remaining alien leaders had taken refuge, in the heart of the city. Sorel and Zorath watched the human troops advance. "It's over," Zorath said quietly. "We can't win this. They've broken us." Sorel stood, staring at the holographic map of the city. He could see the human forces closing in, their ground troops moving toward the palace. It was only a matter of time before they reached the heart of their government. "We've lost," he admitted, his voice filled with resignation. "But we can't let them have the city without a fight." At that moment, the doors to the command center burst open, and a group of alien soldiers entered, their weapons drawn. One of them said, his voice shaky, "We can't keep fighting. The humans are too strong." Sorel looked at Zorath, his face filled with regret. "We've failed," he said. "Earth has proven itself more powerful than we ever thought. Now we have to face the consequences." Elise Davis and the human ground forces finally reached the heart of the Zinter capital. The alien leaders, once so confident, were now surrendering. They had fought for so long, but it was clear that the humans had outplayed them in every way. Their fleet, their technology, and their strategy had been too much for the once mighty Galactic Council to handle. "We've won," Elise said quietly to her team, "but this is just the beginning. Earth will now take its rightful place in the galaxy." As the human forces stood victorious, they looked out over the ruins of the Zinter capital. The sky, once dark and filled with alien ships, was now quiet. Earth had claimed its victory, and the galaxy would never forget the day they underestimated humanity. The battle for the Zinter capital was over. The alien forces, once proud and mighty, had fallen before humanity's unexpected strength. As the dust settled and the human fleet hovered above the ruined city, Commander Elise Davis stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her eyes scanning the remnants of the battlefield below. The mission was a success, but the victory felt heavy. There was no triumph in the destruction they had caused, only the realization of how much it had cost. The once vibrant city was now a shadow of its former self. The magnificent alien architecture, which had stood for centuries, lay in rubble. Fires burned in the streets, and the air was thick with smoke. The humans had not only defeated the alien forces, they had dismantled the heart of the galaxy's most powerful empire. But as the adrenaline of victory faded, the true weight of their actions began to sink in. "We've done it," Lieutenant James Carter said quietly, standing beside Elise. His voice was filled with awe and disbelief. "We've broken the council. Earth has its revenge." Elise didn't answer right away. She stared out at the destruction. Below, her mind racing. The battle had been necessary, but the price had been steep. Lives had been lost, not just on the alien side, but among the human forces as well. And though Earth had secured its place in the galaxy, she couldn't help but wonder if the cost of this victory was more than what they had bargained for. "What now?" Carter asked, his tone softer. "What happens next for Earth?" Elise turned to him, her expression serious. "We rebuild," she said. "We didn't come this far just to destroy. We'll have to figure out how to live in this new galaxy. We've earned the right to lead, but with that comes a responsibility. We can't just take what we want. We have to protect those who remain and ensure that Earth doesn't become what we fought against." Carter nodded, though his eyes betrayed a hint of doubt. "And what about the others? The alien species still out there? So they won't just let us take control? They won't have a choice," Elise replied firmly. "But we'll do it the right way. We'll show them what Earth can offer. Not just war, but hope and peace. We're not just conquerors, we're survivors. We've learned from the mistakes of the past, and we can build something better." Back on the ground, the alien leaders had been taken into custody. Zorath and Sorrel, once so sure of their victory, now sat in a secure holding area within the Eclipse, their expressions grim. They had fought for so long to control the galaxy, only to watch as humanity, once seen as weak and insignificant, tore down everything they had built. They were no longer leaders, they were prisoners of a future they had failed to control. Sorrel was the first to speak. "Can't keep us here forever," he said, his voice cold. "But the galaxy won't bow to Earth. We still have allies." "You've made an enemy of every species in the galaxy." Zorath, who had been silent up until now, spoke with more bitterness. "You think the galaxy will just accept Earth as its ruler? You'll be crushed under the weight of every species that opposes you? We'll unite against you. You're nothing but a passing storm." Elise stood across from them, her expression unwavering. "You're wrong," she said, her voice calm but strong. "We didn't come here to rule. We came here to prove that Earth belongs in the galaxy. We've learned how to survive against impossible odds. And now, we'll teach the galaxy what it means to survive with us. We're not looking to dominate, we're looking to create something new. You can join us, or you can fight. But you're right about one thing: you're no longer in control." The alien leaders fell silent, their defiance fading as they realized the truth of Elise's words. Their time as rulers had ended. The humans had not only defeated them, they had taken control of their fate. Meanwhile, in the control room of the Eclipse, a new challenge was emerging. Earth had won the battle, but the war for the future of the galaxy was just beginning. The once mighty Galactic Council had collapsed, but that didn't mean the galaxy would automatically fall in line. Other species, some even more powerful than the Zinter, would surely rise to challenge humanity's claim to power. Elise knew that their next step would be critical. They had to navigate this new galaxy carefully, balancing their newfound strength with the responsibility that came with it. "We can't let the galaxy fall into chaos," Elise said to her officers, her voice resolute. We've won the battle, but now we need to show them that Earth isn't just about fighting. We need to create alliances, not just enemies. We need to rebuild and lead with strength, but also with wisdom. The officers nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. What do you suggest we do next, Commander? One asked. First, Elise replied, we stabilize the sectors we've taken, need to ensure there's order, not just after the battle. But for the future, then we send out envoys to the other species. We offer them a chance to join us, understanding that Earth won't rule with an iron fist, but with fairness. We'll give them a place in the new order. And those who refuse to join us, well, we'll deal with them in the way we always have, with strength. The officers nodded, agreeing with the plan. Earth was no longer just a survivor, it was a leader in the making. But the weight of that leadership was heavy. Elise knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be resistance, challenges, and perhaps even betrayal. But she also knew that Earth had faced impossible odds before, and had always found a way to survive. As the human fleet moved into the galaxy's heart, Elise looked out at the stars. The war had been long, and the price of victory had been high. But humanity had made it through. They had proven that they could rise above their past, above their struggles, and claim their place in the galaxy. And now they would build a future, where Earth was not just a memory of defeat, but a symbol of strength and hope. We've won this fight, Elise said quietly to herself. But now we fight for the future. As the fleet moved forward, the galaxy watched in silence. Earth had done the impossible. And now, the galaxy would have to face the reality of humanity's power, whether they were ready or not.